Right, shalom, I'm giving all praise unto Bashim Hashem, Bashim Koha Korash. Double honors unto the apostles of Great Millstone, and our ownership brothers to be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the earth. Love everybody coming out here to give you this truth for the grace and mercy of Yahweh Bashim Hashem, Bashim Koha Korash. Giving all praise unto Bashim Hashem, Bashim Koha Korash. Okay, so this is going to be the Sabbath lesson. We're going to be going into a particular topic here. That is the topic of handicapping the Negro, handicapping the Israelites, handicapping the people of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shema Shai, in order to get the leg up, the proverbial leg up out here and maintain that leg up via pseudosciences. And this is kind of like a topic that we've been going through a few times over the years and a few times over the course of the last month or whatever. I'm just going to jump into it again and go into the same topic, man, until we be out of here. We're going to be repeating some of these lessons and bringing out different information at each point. So, you got guys out here that might think that's boring or whatever. Well, go and watch the booty shaking videos. Okay, we are here to be edified. Okay, this is a situation of being edified here, not some entertainment. All right, which you could have both, but really this is for edification's sake, not entertainment's sake. So without much further ado, let's get into this topic. I've got a few articles prepared, and we're going to be going through some historical points and factors, things that had happened within recent times, where Esau has used his pseudoscience to perpetrate and maintain superiority over Jake. And it's been incredible, really, to see how far rooted some of these mindsets that Jake has. The low self-esteem, the thinking that you're a lower IQ than the Edomite, even to the point of dragging down your fellow brothers and sisters that have something got going on. Now, I remember growing up, I hated that thing of being looked down upon because you spoke properly or whatever. Which, Jake really can code switch or whatever. But that thing of speaking properly was looked down upon amongst Jake. And, if you was doing well in school, you weren't cool. Girls weren't dealing with you. The black girls weren't dealing with you. But then some of them Latinas, the Asian girls, they was dealing with you. And you see that a lot, with Jake, that's so-called affluent or whatever. Because they have a different value structure. Because when you look at Jake, their value structure comes from their daddy Esau. Does not the scripture say you are of your father the devil, and last your father you will do? So the value structure that Jake has, for the most part, it comes from Esau, and that's why they value guns, drugs, and adultery, idolatry, all of this. That's what Esau's into. And that's going to be a good scripture for us to really start on before we go into this lesson, man. How the ox knoweth its owner, the ass is master's crib. But Jake don't consider. They don't consider these particular things because your mindset is within Esau's value system. Your mindset is within Esau's way of doing things, and you don't consider that this way of living ain't it. You don't consider that you're more than what you are because you believe yourself to be the base creature that Esau is. He's fashioned you after his own mindset, which is, really a bad place to be. But that's why you have to have the prophets out there to heal you. And when you see this healing coming, you're supposed to receive it and be transformed in your thinking, that you're above an Edomite, not to be equaled with an Edomite, but you're above an Edomite, which we're going to see that within the scripture in a second. Isaiah 1:3 says, the ox knoweth its owner, the ass is master's crib, but Israel doth not know, my people don't consider, right? Jake don't want to consider these particular things. When we tell you Israelites, you're better than these people, they don't want to consider that. They're happy with this position that they've been given. And I'm going to show you that this is all a fabricated way of living. This ain't real. Okay, the idea that Jake's got a lower IQ, it's not real. Now, that thing is not real. Now, you might have some brothers that are slower than others or learn in different ways than others, which for the most part, Jake learns in rhythm. Okay, they learn with they learn a particular way they got a particular way of living and thinking that's different to Esau. We're creative thinkers. We're everything, man. Remember, Jake is the form of all things. To reduce it down to be a so-called creative thinker. It's where you start seeing people thinking that we're just good at music. It's like, we're more than that, man. We're the most special people. Deuteronomy 7:6 says, for thou art holy people unto Yahweh Shema Shai. The Most High has chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people upon the face of the earth. But what's the countermeasure, so to speak, against that is that Esau knows these particular things, and they've put measures in place to keep you retarded. Okay, they put measures in place to keep you stupid, measures in place to keep you retarded and thinking that you are retarded, that's the worst thing. It's one thing to actually fail a test. It's another thing to actually believe that you deserve failing the test. And we're gonna see something about those so-called tests that they have out here that pretty much shapes your opinion about yourself and shapes your opinion and shapes your life that we have out here within Britain. I don't know what it's like out there within the US, but certainly out here within Britain, we've seen a legacy where, pretty much you get put in a box and you ain't allowed to get outside of that box. You get put in a particular box at a very early age and you are not allowed to escape out of that particular box. These SAT tests that they have out here, they have it at particular intervals, like year 6, year 9 or whatever. I forget what it is, GCSEs or all of that. And I remember this and I didn't even think two ways about it when I was at that age. Why would you give two children two different tests and one is capped at a very low level? That don't seem right in a way. Okay, so you're telling me if I get 80% on a lower class test, then I can only get a C, but if I also get 30-40% on the other test, I can also get a C. Like, that's crazy. But that's all scandals that we have out here within the UK that they use to determine what category you belong in. And really it's the teachers, these racist teachers that you see, that determine these particular things. I was lucky enough to have people that were supportive when I was coming up, and they believed in me maybe more so than I did in myself. Even to this day, you struggle with that because you've been given a mental image about yourself, right, from your enemy. Psalms, the 83rd chapter on the 3rd verse, says they have taken crafty counsel, and this is what we're gonna go into is crafty, man. What Esau was able to do, okay, capping you. Because let's just be honest about it, as we're gonna see, Jack Johnson and many other athletes, basketball was owned by Edomites. When I say owned by Edomites, I mean they was the only people playing or whatever. And we see that's not the thing anymore. We took over that sport. Jake took over that sport. Okay. But for the longest time, basketball, tennis, all of these things, it was Edomite only sports. And when you saw Jake coming up on a level, that ultimately led to them basically having to accept that they're not really physically dominant anymore. We're gonna see that with Jack Johnson. We might as well get that out of it now. They had to accept that. Okay, look at Jack Johnson, the true champion versus the great white hope. There's probably no more charged phrase in all our American lexicon than the great white hope, signifying the pride of a race over another race. You got people out here saying we're all together and we're all the same people. Nah, we're not all the same people. You got Edomites, Ishmaelites, right? Elamite, and all of these nations that the Most High created, 18 nations to be more specific. And one was going to be more dominant than the other one. The phrase itself came into existence over 100 years ago in the era of Jack Johnson, right? The great American heavyweight fighter who happened to be black. And this guy dominated. So after process of time, Esau basically had to accept that when it comes to the physicality thing, they just was not on the level. Now, let me take a pause. I'm going to pause because I want to pull up an article. Okay, so I forget exactly where I'd left off the statement that I made prior to this, but pretty much what I was trying to illustrate to you, like when it comes to the intellectual thing, you've been kept down for the longest amount of time. You've been reduced just to physicality and brutality and all of that. But really, when it comes to intellect, by process of time, education, and family, you're seeing these families, like the Nigerian families, coming up on a level. See this article right here. It says Edomite, British, right, children outperformed by ethnic minorities. And obviously, you was going to get the Bengalis in there, the Bangladeshis. They got the family there. And with the Bangladeshis, they're going to have the doctors, the GP, the father's a GP or something, mother's a nurse or something. They're going to work hard. They're going to teach their children to work hard. But you've also seen these Ghanaians coming up in there, Nigerians coming up in there, Sierra Leone, all outperforming these traditionally high IQs, apparently. And that was all farcical. And that's why they had to handicap Jake. That's why they had to create these crafty ways of doing things to try and keep you from really realizing that you're better than them. They've taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted thy hidden ones. They've said, come, let's cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. And that's it, man. So crafty. So let's go to our first video clip. We don't really need that as such. That's going to be mentioned in what we're going to look at in a second. So this is what I was mentioning right here when it comes to the physicality and all that. That's the cap that you're allowed to embrace. You're allowed to embrace being King Kong, the beast, chasing after some Edomite woman. Which, Edomite, you can get some pretty Edomite women out there, but really Edomite women ain't all that, man. Okay? Unless she's got some, traditionally Jake features. That's what you see most of the time, though. You see like an Eddie Murphy or something like that, or one of these other cats out there that's got Edomite women. Edomite women is, usually they got traditionally, Jake features. Nice wide hips, nice big breasts and curvy and all of that, man. Usually attractive women, not these, flat backs. Okay, not these flat backs that you have within the day, that they call the standard of beauty. You don't really see Jake with that too much, right? But the point I'm trying to make is this: you was given the category of being the King Kong, right? Physically brutal, but just unintelligible. We're seeing that to be not the case. We're seeing that to be a crafty canvas that Esau's painted over the opinions over the world. And there's various means by which he did that. He had very good tactics by which he did that. Very, very, very subtle, right, means by which he was able to achieve that. So there's a TV program, or a documentary, if you will, that was created, and it's called Subnormal. And we're just gonna listen to that a little bit. Hopefully I've got it prepared here. If not, like, just play it or whatever. And okay, so that's it. That's the example. And what we need to do is we need to watch the clip. And we're gonna watch this clip and realize that really this idea of Edomites being smart and smarter as being reinforced by various different programs of keeping Jake down. Okay? So let's get into it. I'm gonna play it. I might play it a little bit faster than what it is, but let's play this.
The rate at which black children were being sent to these schools was pretty shocking. When I was told that there were schools for the education is subnormal called ESN schools, my immediate reaction was, what? What are you talking about? I'd never heard about this thing before. I noted the ESN schools had a higher percentage of black kids than I considered normal given the demographics of the boroughs from which they came. And also, I saw too many kids that were clearly average intelligence or even above average. They thought that their inability to speak the Queen's English, as they used to call it, was because they were thick and unintelligent, as distinct from the fact that they were speaking a different language. When I used tests with children, one found that children didn't understand the words that were asked of them. For example, when children were asked, what's a tap? They couldn't describe it, they couldn't define it. I felt he must be able to say this, to say what this is. It's something that is used in the West Indies. It must have a name.
In fact, there was no reason why West Indian children should have known what the word tap means, because in parts of the Caribbean, a tap was known as a pipe.
Fortunately, there was a tap in the very room in which I was testing, and I walked across the room and I said, well, what is this? And the child said, a pipe. They knew what a pipe was, which was the same concept. That meant that on tests, they were made to feel inferior when they realized that many of the items that were asked of them they could not clearly define.
Cultural bias and language misunderstandings go a long way to explaining why the IQ scores of newly arrived immigrant children seem so low. And in fact, one study showed that after black children had a chance to become acclimatized to Britain, their IQs fell within the same average range as their white peers. It also concluded that differences in IQ results between populations were primarily the result of educational environment and not brain.
Now, let me just take a quick pause here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to speak about this whole IQ thing that Esau's been able to use as some kind of leveraging stick. This thing is influenced by all kind of different BS, okay? All kind of different nonsense, okay? Right? It's basically useless because, you know, if you play Tetris for weeks, they've done this experiment, right? You play Tetris all week, right? And that's all you do. Psychological experiment that they conducted. You start to rearrange your life. And you start to rearrange your whole furniture like Tetris. That's all you see. And that's, for intents and purposes, what IQ is. Structure that you've grown up with, environmental factors that you've grown up with, influence how you perceive the world. And that's what, you know, the West Indies, the Windrush, they had the back end of that. They came in, right, had to build up from the bottom, so to speak. Whereas, you know, you had these Nigerians coming, Ghanaians coming into the country, or the UK I'm speaking about here, which they was already coming up on a level because they was coming from a different perspective. They was coming on, okay, my dad was a doctor in Nigeria, my mother was a nurse or whatever, and we're coming up to level up. And that's what I've seen within my own first-hand experience. Dudes that was coming from so-called good families within Africa, and they come into the England and they was able to outpace even Edomites. Not even Edomites, but it was, man, Jake is outpacing Esau out here, man. I just showed you the example. It's not even Edomites. They're outpacing Edomites. Esau's the one with the low IQ. Okay, Esau is the one that's got a low IQ. The only way Esau can win, and this is what we're proving right here, just from this example, and just what we've just seen here, the only way Esau can win is if he's got a head start. And that's what he's been doing for the longest time. He's been keeping the head start. He's been trying to reinforce the head start as much as physically possible. That's what we're seeing here, man. Let's continue.
Potential dictated by factors like race.
Black kid is 4 times more likely to be wrongly placed in an ESN school than a...
So what you're seeing here is that you support Jake, okay, in these special needs school. That's what was happening. So you just come from the West Indies or something. You got different terminologies for different things. Make you do a test. Now you were, you know, with some retards. You're in a classroom full of retards. Now your whole life is capped. Now your whole existence is capped. Now you can never be more because Esau's already cut your legs from underneath you. You see? And then after process of time, your kids come up and you already, either you find out this to be the case, now you don't trust the school system, which, you know, fuck the school system or whatever. I'm just using this as an example. Right? Fuck the school system. But the point I'm trying to make is this. The cycle perpetuates. Okay, the cycle perpetuates.
A white kid. In other words, there were 4 times as many black children in ESN schools who should not have been there as there were white working class kids who also should not have been there. The ratio was 4-1. The reaction of the establishment was very interesting. The leading educationalist in the ILEA appeared on television with me, and the line was, "It's all rubbish, it's all lies." So right there on the program, I quoted the statistics and said, "This is your own report. Are you saying that everything you all wrote and kept hidden are lies?"
Then obviously 5 years from now, you can throw your hands up in the air and say, you see, you were right. These kids are ESN, having made sure that they get less facilities, less teaching equipment, having, in short, actually engineered the environment for failure.
And that's it, man. Esau engineers an environment for failure. Okay, some of you Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans out there, you eat that shit up, man. Esau engineers an environment for failure. Okay. Now, to hell with the to hell with success in this world, but come on, man. You gotta see the shit for what it is. Okay, Esau ain't better. He's engineered an environment in which you fail. The CAPT exam, this is a common United Kingdom practice right here. CAPT exam typically refers to an exam that exists that where the maximum grade you can achieve is limited to the pass mark, 40% of undergraduates or 50% for postgraduate students. So you got a test. Most of the tests that, you know, when I was coming up, at least, I don't know if it's still the same thing. You had tests that you used to do, and you couldn't, if the teacher decided that you couldn't get, you couldn't pass the so-called big time test, and they could get it wrong. And of course, if it's an Edomite teacher, they're gonna put you in the lower set. I don't know if you guys got out there within the States, but we got lower sets out here. And within the lower sets, man, who's gonna bring who up? The thing is, when you got a smart kid in the room, yeah, you can so-called slow that smart kid, slow that smart kid down, but they could also speed you up. And obviously, people learn at different rates. Now you're, let's say you was a math genius by 7 years old. Let's say 6 years old, you was still slow. Guess what? You're never gonna make it, bro, because you're already been capped. And it goes all the way back onto the times of slavery. This is the guy Samuel A. Cartwright, and this is the philosophies that he used to come out with, pseudosciences that he used to characterize Jake and put them in a category, put them in a box, right? And this is some of the stuff that we still see unto this day. Now, this is specifically speaking about slavery, but check out the terminologies and the statements that you see here, man, and you see the terms that it's applied to. Drapetomania was a proposed mental illness, right? This guy was a so-called physician, right? And he came up with the concept of drapetomania and called it, and this was a mental illness that he saw Jake in slavery with, apparently. Guy's so proud. He's so proud he sees Jake in slavery. He says, okay, in order for Jake to be wanting to flee, because, obviously he's gotta want to live underneath me, right? Surely. Okay, I gotta come up with a term for that. I'm gonna call him a drapetomaniac. Drapetomania was a proposed mental illness that in 1851, American physician Samuel A. Cartwright hypothesized as a cause of enslaved Americans fleeing captivity. This hypothesis was based on the belief that slavery was such an improvement upon the lives. You see the pride of this guy, man. See the pride of this guy, keeping it on to himself, all kind of people, and so proud in thinking that he's the guy that's he's got to be in charge. Surely this is better. Okay, surely this is better. Get this scripture right here, man. He flattereth himself. Okay, surely this is better. Psalms 36:2, for he flattereth himself in his own eyes until iniquity be found in it. That's how this guy goes on around the earth. Surely this is better, man. Surely you be getting whipped. Okay, surely you getting lynched. That's better than the conditions that you're gonna have. This hypothesis was based on the belief that slavery was such an improvement upon the lives of slaves that only suffering from some mental illness that they could want to escape. Proud, bro. Proud. Okay, but he's really the beast. That's what Jake don't understand. Esau's really the beast, man. He's really that beast. He's really the animal, that brute. Job, the 30th chapter, in the first verse. But now they that younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to set with the dogs of my flock. And you see what they be doing with the dogs, man. Kissing the dog on the lips. Kissing the dog on the lips. Doing all kind of weird things with the dogs, man. For want of famine, they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness. In former time, desolate and waste. Right, cut up mallows by the bushes, and juniper roots was their meat. They were driven forth from among men. They was cried after them as after a thief. Among the bushes they prayed, underneath the nettles. They were gathered together. They were children of fools, and these guys are fools, man. You got some little bright sparks over there. You gotta have a little bright spark for Esau to push his endeavor. Okay, they gotta push an enterprise, right? So you got a little bright spark over there. But even the bright sparks, I'm looking at my man. He's supposed to be the head guy. I'm like, bro, this is a stupid move. Okay, you see, when Jake is intelligent, they usually have what's known as high general intelligence. When the Jake is smart, it ain't some generalized, it ain't some specific thing. Now, I remember coming up, man, and I hate it to this day that Jake that was good at sport, they was taught that it was only good at sport, because I remember what it was like being in year 9, year 10, year 11, and man, I couldn't hold a candle to these guys. They think I'm better than them. It's like, brother, you were intelligent, bro. Okay, you had hope, but you was fed the sports stream. How you want to be a basketball player within England? Where do you think you're going to go, bro? As a basketball player within England. That's what these guys was fed. They was fed the sports stream because they was put in the category. But all of these boys, when I remember them, the ones I used to run about with on the basketball court, these were intelligent individuals, and they had what's known as high general intelligence. That is to say, when Jake went into science class, they picked it up quick. When they went into, math class, they picked it up quick. Okay? You could talk to girls. Right, so they had the high social intelligence. They had respect. They had, for the family and everything. They had high general intelligence. But when it comes to Esau, what you find out is, man, this guy might be a good mathematician, but he can't even talk to a girl. He's supposed to be intelligent. You're supposed to be this great mathematician, but he can't even holler at a woman. That's fucking crazy, man. You're supposed to be so intelligent, all of that, right? You're supposed to be this great mathematician, but you can't even put a plan together to get your life together. Man, come out here with that shit, man. Yeah, Jake's got problems and we got demons on us and whatever. Sometimes curses be messing your spirit up. You don't even know whether you smart or whether curses has got you bad. But when it comes down to it, we special. Okay, we special, right? We special. And the more and more closer that we get to Yahushua returning, the more and more you're going to see how special we are, man. Because above all things, we're the only ones that can get into these scriptures and understand what it says within these scriptures, right? These fools, they were fools, children of base men. They were viler than the earth. Esau's vile, man. Esau's a vile, man. Okay? They're viler than the earth. They abhor me. They flee far from me. Now they spit in my face. And that's what it's become, man. That's what it's become. A beast, man. A beast is one that ruleth over you now. Let's go back. Look at this guy. This guy is the one that rules over you. Cartwright was specifically cited for his tendency, cited the tendency of slaves to flee the plantation that held them, since slaves were happy with the condition. See, slaves were happy with their condition, would not leave. So he called it a mental illness. That's part of the categories that this guy gives you, even if it's like a tangible reason. Like, well, no, you gotta be sick. There's something wrong with you. You gotta be sick. Right? One of the things that they do now is boisterous behavior within schools. That's like shunned. But boys are supposed to be boisterous. What do you mean boys are supposed to be docile and laid back like girls, man? No, young boys are boisterous. That's another box that they put Jake in, man. And guess who gets disproportionately affected by those boys? No, the penalization of boyish behavior? Jake. Okay. This is Asasia, I thought Ethiopica. Okay. This was allegedly a mental illness, right? Which proposed the theory of laziness among slaves, which, Jake's got that, some of that as well. Jake be lazy sometimes, right? Don't want to be lazy. But I use this as an example to prove that this legacy of creating a box in which Jake belongs in, okay, to the point of punishment. Remember, them slaves were punished, bro. They were punished, man. They was whipped for having all of these pseudoscience, right? Pseudoscience terms being applied to them. They was whipped, bro. Okay, they got hell for these things. They got hell for these things, right? And how much more so now when you got the so-called IQ test that they use to try, put you in a box. You hate with these Esau's dad's an engineer, his mom's an engineer. Now you're trying to keep up with him. Your mom's works in McDonald's. Of course you're gonna fail the test the first time round. That don't mean you're less than. You just didn't grow up in the right environment. And as Jake's environment changes, you see them catching up. Okay? You see them surpassing Esau, because really Esau's the one that's the beast. He's gotta create these pseudosciences to put you in a bag. Okay, he put you in a box. He's gotta create these pseudosciences to keep you handicapped. Okay, he's gotta keep you in these categories, man. That's the only hope he's got to be better. In any event, with that, I'm going to say all praises unto Yahweh, the balance unto the apostles, a great millstone. Honor your brothers, baby, pushing this truth in sincerity. I'll see you on the next one. Shalom.